What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Indie Inkwell's 20th episode special. I am one of your two hosts, JJ. My normal co-host, Longbox Entertainment, cannot make it. I'm upset about that because it's the 20th episode and he should be here. However, we do have a regular from the show, our very first guest on the show, occasional co-host on the show. Give it up for Kyle Goodman, aka Nerd2E. What is going
Hey!
on, my guy?
Just another glorious day in paradise, living the dream, as they say.
As they say, living the dream as much as we can these days.
Right?
Well, real quick before we get into anything, I do want to go ahead and give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, and that is Into the AM. And Into the AM is a team of artists and creators with the shared vision of seeing clothing as a canvas to express yourself and what drives you. And since 2012, they have been developing premium apparel with the goal of elevating self-expression with unmatched comfort and yep. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Something froze up on my end. Okay, anyway, sorry about that. They have simple basic tees, hoodies, much more. And what really sold us on having these guys sponsor the show was their selection of graphic t-shirts. You can see some of those on the screen right here. And right now, they don't have a huge sale going on. However, you can still get 10% off your order using code JJComics at checkout. And that is intotheam.com. Use code JJComics at checkout. Click the link in the description. Get 10% off your order. You're helping support the show. These guys help support us and help support the indie comic book community. So please give them a shout out if you want to help us out that way. Now, whoa, this is not the. There we go.
I was
It's
like,
just one
and
of those episodes, man. Stuff's
was that
freezing.
a subliminal message because I'm short? Let me make it real tiny. Well, I think you did that on purpose.
Trust me, I did not. This is my computer having hiccups today, apparently, and I don't know why. But anyway, what's up, Mr. Fish Comics?
Hey.
So today what we wanted to do is we don't have a creative guest unless you want to count Mr. Kyle Goodman himself. But we wanted to kind of go over some of our favorite interviews and books from the first 20 episodes that we've done so far. And what better way to do that than to start with our very first guest. I mean, your project, Here Walks Monsters, my friend, kind of did gangbusters at MegaCon.
Yeah, it's kind of the whole story behind it. We've been over that on the show, but MegaCon was surreal. I was very lucky to have. I've made a lot of really great friends and connections in the industry, not only as artists and creators, but as retailers. And one of my good friends had a booth and was like, "Hey, you want to do an exclusive?" I'm like, "Sure." For what? For MegaCon. I'm sorry. What? And it's the lovely ladies at 305 Comics Miami. One of them, Tina, she's also the artist, so she did the cover, knocked it out the park. Very little back and forth that we had to go. Literally, she sent me finished product. I added. I was like, hey, can you add some zombies? And we're good. And that was it. And it was so I haven't had such a easy work with people, because even with my normal artist Martin, we go back and forth just because we're creating it. Yeah, there was no issues there, and luckily enough we had a 50 print run and sold out, which
Dude,
it's
that's so
amazing.
awesome because I see so many creators go to cons and hardly sell anything. Like it's gotten so difficult for people at
Mhm.
conventions now.
Well, I got very lucky. I The placement that we were at, I mean, I was literally 2 booths down from the king of zombies himself. The guy who did all of the art for The Walking Dead, Marvel Zombies, so when I actually spoke to him for a minute, and what really changed my whole perspective on the industry was I've noticed that these big creators that are like artists or writers, they are so happy to be doing what they're doing that they treat other creators as if they're equals. Even if, like for me, I've done an ash can. That is it. So for the King of Zombies, or Martin Simmons, who does all the Something is Killing the Children and Dracula and stuff with James Tynion and Alan Qua, these guys looking at my book like, wow, this is really good. I'm like, whoa, excuse me. Did you just say this is really good? I mean, and it really changed my whole perspective, and it kind of lit a fire into me. Me and Martin are tearing through the rest of the issue.
I know you guys keep sending me sample pages and stuff, and I'm just
Woo!
like, "Oh my god, you guys are ripping through this stuff." Like, I cannot wait for people to start seeing issue 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, oh, it's gonna be good.
Yeah, and
It's gonna be one of my new addictions, I can already tell.
in preparation for this episode, I went back and actually watched your interview on here with Alan, and you made a comment about how a lot of the community now seems to be buying like short print runs and 4 issues and then trades. And I went and commented, I was like, I cannot wait to make you read over 100
I
issues of
saw
here
that.
because excuse me, this is a long story, and I really, a lot of the books that we were on your show, when you go back and look at them, they do such a good job in the first issues, really building the world. And I think that's something that indie comics do far better than the big two, is
I agree.
developing worlds and making the stories seem important.
Now,
Instead, I
I
mean,
think that's
great
one
art's one
reason why
thing,
people
but
are like, indie comics, it takes so long for anything to happen." I'm like, "'Cause they're building a world for you to get immersed in. You have to let things cook," as they're saying
yeah.
now.
Well, I mean, and to, my ash can, for instance, my plan was to not have any zombies, or just it was just gonna be humans for the first issue or two.
Mhm.
I broke my code, my idea, to make sure there was something in the ash can to give people a feel of what the action will be like if they just give me the chance to tell the story. So and things like that, it's tough because I'm even thinking right now potentially to make the ash can its own separate thing and start on page 10 and have 10 be page 1, and be like, well, if you want to see that extra, that's a prequel, that's a special edition, the story starts here, kind of thing. Not only because of how I wanted to initially tell the story, but more because the level that we've stepped up since
Mhm.
since MegaCon, since the people who I respect so much, like, praise the work, especially the art. Like, I mean, I've always known Martin's art was gonna be a draw, no matter
Right.
what. But we're on this wavelength now, where he just knows what I mean. Like, when I tell you, I think it's page 13. I can't remember. At page 13, we went back and forth for like almost a day and a half because he just wasn't getting what I was saying. He's like, I don't understand. What do you mean? Do you mean this? No. And so what I had to do is had to go find like a manga page that it's like that was
That
similar. I was
looks
like,
similar to what you were
something
wanting.
like this, but not. He goes, oh, now I get it. You know, and
Well,
it's so
because that's what one thing I've always found fascinating with writers working together with artists, especially without anybody, like, overseeing the 2, because I'm like, writers are much more of a, like, hear it and
mhm.
visualize it kind of people, whereas, actual artists are more visual when they get ideas and things, so they
Yep.
need, like, some sort of a reference point. Like, how
It
is that trying to figure each other out?
Um, so early on, it was more difficult.
I imagine.
Because we've never actually met in person. This is all we've like. I was a fan of his artwork for many years, and then and to pull full force around back to Alan, what he said about someone, reach out to him. You never know what they're gonna say. I
Mhm.
had Martin had never done a comic book before I reached out to him. No one ever approached him. No one asked him to do artwork for interiors, even covers. I think he's done one cover now since he started working with me. But um, he was like, "Wait, you want to do a comic book with me? Yes. Are you interested? Yes." you know. But now it's got to the point where, again, for the most part, besides one, well, it was literally one panel, It was just how I wanted a face positioned. And we ended up, you know what the funny part? We ended up changing it completely. Like he gave me exactly what I wanted, and then he had an idea, and he's like, "Do you mind if I run with this?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's see what you do." And we added the sunglasses to the scene instead of having the eyes just blacked out. And then he put the reflection in the sunglasses. I was like, "Oh, that's so much better." Okay, we're going with that. I like it. We're gonna work with that. We're gonna work with that. I love it. I love it. Like, and that's the thing about, I think, when you find the right team and you can give and take. Like, I realized during this process that we are editing it as we go. A lot of times when you have a publisher, they'll give you an editor, you'll turn the script into them before the art even starts, and then they'll be like, you got to take this out, you got to take this out, you got to take this out, change this. So what I do is I send him all of my word vomit and say, this is what I'm thinking, this is how I want it to look, and I just say, have fun. And then most of the
hope
time
it comes back looking somewhat what you
right.
thought it would look like.
And most of the time it's what I wanted or better. And the
Right.
few times it's not, I'm just like, all right, so what I really meant was this. And it was like that panel, what he initially gave was sick as hell. It's just not what I was looking for.
Right.
So I was like, try this. Oh, I like that. And then I was like, oh, let's do this. That's the one. And I don't know if a lot of artists and writers do that, because they have that middleman, the editor.
They usually have an editor, and plus there's, another letterer, and there's a colorist, and there's sometimes there's a penciler and an inker. Like,
Yep.
usually you've got, like, especially with the bigger companies, you could have 10 to 12 people on a book on some of these.
Yep. And that and I was talking to Martin about it too, and we are thinking about how we can expand and make it a bigger venture and still be true to us.
Mhm.
Because one thing I've said from the start, I'm not rushing art. Period.
Right.
Like, if he needs 6 months to give me a perfect comic, I'm gonna give him that 6 months. A publisher would not allow that.
No.
A publisher, you got deadlines, you don't meet them, you owe us money type shit. Like, and that's one of the main reasons why I'm self-publishing, because I don't want to ever rush it. And
Mhm.
granted, this time we are consciously putting like deadlines on ourselves.
That's different than
right.
being like, if you don't get something done by this time, then we're gonna drop your contract type thing.
Exactly.
It's a whole
Right.
different thing when it's your own personal deadlines.
And that's something that, if you're gonna make your own comic, you gotta think about these kind of things. It's harder to do it yourself. It's much more expensive to do it yourself.
Right.
And there's a lot, like, I get to the point where there are some times where I'm like, especially when the lead up to MegaCon, when I was, getting the
I
orders
remember.
done, doing all this, and I got to the point where I was like, I just want a publisher
You
to
did,
handle
bro. You
this.
messaged me one time, I think, and like, I could tell in the text that you were just nearing a mental breakdown due to just stress and anticipation.
Oh, no, it's true. Like, and like I said, I definitely, there were points during that lead up where I was like, you know what? I don't care. Give me deadlines. It may not be good enough. I don't care. I'm just gonna find a publisher. I'm done. But
But the
again,
fact that you didn't do that and waited it out, I think it came out a lot better that way.
yeah, and I think
I think it paid off.
my hope is that I can get a distribution deal, which I am actually working on getting, but it's not like, it's so early in the
Not
process of
something
it
even really worth mentioning quite
that
yet.
I can't even fathom it's actually in the process.
Right.
But I've been trying to figure out how to get that. Also talking to some comic book shops around me, wanting to see if they'll carry it, because I'm in control. If I want to order 10,000 copies of it, if I can afford to, I could do so. And
I can
so
only imagine how much that would cost.
it's like 20,000.
Oh, that's actually not as bad as I was picturing.
That's with no bells and whistles, and that's with
Right.
12 pages. So like,
Ugh.
if you're talking for like the ash can, I haven't
Oh,
done the
wow.
pricing on the 20 for the 10,000, because I'm not there yet. So I don't want to freak myself out before I even get the
Right.
finished product.
Completely psych yourself out of it.
But that's another thing. You'll have self doubts. Trust me. Um, just keep pushing. Cause like when I got to MegaCon and hearing those kind words and like praise from like these legends. I mean, the guy made Marvel Zombies and
Who are
Walking
now,
Dead.
let's be honest about it, they're now your peers since you have entered their industry.
The the way they spoke to me, it it, it it was all worth it. Every little bit of stress, every all the hair that I pulled out, all the sleepless nights, it was all worth it because it's I knew I was on the right track.
Mhm.
Now I know that I this is the path. You know what I mean? Like
And
I
that's
was in
always so
a dirt
encouraging
road
to
and
hear, dude.
I found the highway. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like,
Like,
I love hearing from indie creators, and we've heard it from pretty much every guest on the show, like, there's nobody's competing with each other in the indie industry. Everybody's just
right.
trying to freaking make it and helping each other out. Like
Yeah. No, but I get to tell myself now that the King of Zombies says it's pretty good. So even when my self doubt is like, I don't think it's very good, I can go. Your opinion no longer matters.
Right,
The
exactly.
King of Zombies says otherwise. Move it along. Move it along.
And then as far as advice and questions, I just want to remind everybody near the end of the show tonight, we are going to do in celebration of the 20 episodes, a little Q&A session if there's anybody in the chat that wants to. If not, we'll go ahead and end it before that. But yeah, if you guys have like questions for Kyle as a creator or for me as a member of the media trying to get your books out there, or are you just a fan trying to get into indie books, ask us questions and we'll try to answer them to the best of our ability because you guys are the only reason we have a show going. You guys are the only reason that this show's made it to 20 episodes so far. So we want to help you guys out if we can. But to get back into the scheduled programming for this evening, we wanted to kind of go over some of our favorite books from the past 20 episodes. And we've had a lot of amazing creators come on the show, man.
Hmm.
I know you've been a guest host for a few of them. You've watched basically all of the episodes,
Yeah.
I know, because you comment on everything. Uh,
Well,
dude, the amount of talent out there, once you start looking for it,
it's
is
insane.
insane.
Yeah. And that's the thing about indies. And I I say this a lot. If there's more great content, the whole ecosystem as a whole will thrive more. Like when you look at indies, if there are good, strong, independent companies and independent creators, eventually, and granted, we're starting to see some of that now. Eventually, there's going to be a huge shift, even more so than we've already seen, because people are tired of the same old tights and capes, and they don't get these real stories anywhere else, uh, but the indies right now.
Well, and aside from just that, I think a lot of creators are also sick of getting the runaround from publishers. You know, you hear story
Yep.
after story, and recently we've heard stories about publishers that we've supported in the past even. I'm not gonna get into it because it's not my business. I'm not involved in it in any way, shape, or form, but I think you guys can probably do a quick Twitter search and figure out what I'm talking about. But, you know, it's like you never like, every time we get behind a big publisher or something, they do something grimy. Now, granted, that doesn't necessarily mean that I would stop buying their books per se because I want to also support those creators. There's
Right.
still creators on these publishers that have amazing stories, and that's the only way they're gonna get them to people is through those publishers if they've got a deal.
Yep.
So, it's a weird space for fans
Yeah.
as well as creators because creators want their stuff to get out there, so the easiest way to do that is through a publisher.
Hmm.
But like I said, like, we hear so many stories of so many different publishers just either flat out ripping people off or just dropping the ball as far as employees, but just doing their basic duties.
Yep. No,
It's
and all of that factored into why I when I publish mine, I'm as long as I can handle it, I will be
right.
self-publishing. You know what I mean? And it's because of horror stories. You know, I mean, and I'm not talking about horror comics. I'm talking about
Right,
the
right,
horror
right.
stories that people tell. Like
Gotta
I
clarify
know,
that real quick.
right? I know people personally that have worked for a company, got, and I'm not going to name names, got real high up in the company to the point where they were almost running the entire publishing house, leave to and just said, "I'm done. I'm going off on my own."
I think I know who
And
you're
I'm
talking about.
so I can write what I want to write instead of all of this. You know how much money I made these people, and they still won't let me write what I want to write. The 3 times they let him write what he wanted to write, they're the 3 biggest sellers of the entire publishing house. You know, and I hear things like that, and I'm thinking to myself, "Oh shit! If someone like you is
Right.
having as much problems, I know I made the right call. It may not have
And that's not just the big publishers, doing
nope, yeah,
artists and writers dirty. It's some of the small publishers do it. I mean, you hear about it all the time. And granted, people make mistakes, companies make
yeah,
mistakes, things can happen. If you screw up and you fess up to your screw up, which has happened recently with a couple of companies, they hopefully learn from that and improve.
right.
Hopefully.
That's the key word.
But within that whole topic, the fact that so many creators have gone indie gives
Mhm.
us as indie fans a wealth of
Yeah,
stuff to read.
and the great thing is that with all those horror stories and all the problems, there are still some amazing books that have made its way through the muck to become
Mhm.
real and to become what they are now, that are just so good. And I'm so happy that there are, though, that the wave has started. That's why we're riding the indie wave. It has it. We haven't hit the peak yet, and it's just now starting to build to where everyone's hopping on. And I'm the more people that are buying indie books, the better for comic books as a whole, not just the indie creators.
Yeah, and I've definitely noticed, especially since the pandemic, we say it all the time, but there was a big shift in every industry during the pandemic
Yep.
because we had to adapt. We had to go digital with everything. Like people had to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
It, it's become a lot easier for a lot of these creators as well because there's been platforms coming out like seeing these demands for all these
Mm-hmm.
guys need
Oh
places
yeah.
to publish. So what happened? Webtoon and Tapas and Global Comics that allow you to publish your shit for free.
I still have yet to do that. You know what it is on the back of my mind is because I only have the ash can when I do issue one. Here, how about this? When issue one releases, I need you to get on my ass to make
I
sure
got
that
you
I put them on those digital platforms as well. Because
because
and that's the
I'm
thing.
a big physical media person. I like to hold
As
things in my hand.
as am I.
However, some things you either just can't freaking find physically, or you don't have a comic shop near you.
Right. Or it could be even
A
another
digital
step
only
further.
series or,
Digital only series, or
like, I've read
someone
a
like
couple of
me
those that were
who
just
doesn't have a
fantastic.
lot. Like I don't mean I don't have this distribution network. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
for someone like me, especially a self-publisher, there's nothing but benefit to have these platforms that give you a place to send it to the freaking internet. You know, where people
Right.
and and when because I had a digital copy as part of some of my backer stuff for my Kickstarter. I didn't realize I would have to like give them all access to the Google Drive. I couldn't just send it to them because it was slightly too big to be emailed, and I didn't want to pay extra for the Dropbox. And then I'm like, this should not be this hard,
No, there's gotta be an easier way to do this, like, with a link.
right? Can I just post it like on? There's got to be somewhere on the web I can just paste it, right? Just put it right.
Right. So, yeah, shout out. That's one question if somebody has later we can answer really easily is how can I publish it with no money digitally?
And all it does is get
That's
more
the
people
easiest thing
have
I can
access
say.
to it. And that's and you know the when it comes to indies, I see a lot more people. I mean, there's always people who aren't like this, obviously, but are more concerned about telling their stories and getting their work out than trying to make money. Granted, they hope to make money and they're also trying to, but the main goal is to tell the best story or to draw the best picture or whatever your part of the process
And
is.
man, what a hell of a segue into a book I wanted to bring up. This was one you were a guest host for, actually.
Oh,
Let's take a trip back to episode number 8. Teresa Kiaki. I do believe I pronounced her name correctly this time, I think. If not, I'm sorry, Teresa. We love you.
you're awesome.
But her book, Drawn to Key West, was something that I wasn't expecting, and it's the definition of that. You
Yeah,
know, she used to go to Key West with her family, you know, every summer, and she became an adult, moved down there, and started, you know, she got obsessed with these street performers. And for those who don't know, Key West, apparently in Florida, Kyle, you can attest to this because you live down in that area.
yep,
It's like street performer capital of the country. Like,
yes,
people can perform there year round because of the weather. There's festivals there all year round. There's all
and
like
it's legal
it's
as
in
well.
yeah, and it's not you're not going to get in trouble for busking because there's a lot of cities in the country now that have anti-busking laws. You can't
Yep,
just go out on the street and plug a guitar into a portable amp and just play music in the subway anymore. You know,
which is
like people get
horrible.
arrested for that now,
So
which
that's
is ridiculous to me.
some of the best music you'll ever hear
Will be
is
in
from
a
a struggling
stairwell in a random
artist like
parking
that.
garage. You know, like
Like, because and again, it's because all yes, they're trying to make money in that too, but they want to play their music. They
yes,
want to
and that's
feel the
their
songs,
way of, telling their story. These
Yeah.
guys who are out there, you know, swallowing knives, juggling fire, and, you know, the girls that are out, like, doing these crazy, like, dances, and it's it's the definition of not trying to become rich and wanting to tell your story, and that's
Yep.
basically what Teresa did. She went around to all these street performers, gathered up their stories, and put them into a graphic novel, and that was Drawn to Key West. And
And it
I
was
just thought it
beautiful.
was one of the most unique things that we
Yeah.
had ever gotten sent. It was one of the most unique things I've read, so that was one I definitely wanted to bring up again.
Absolutely, and that points to the fact that you can tell any story. Like, comic books are the most malleable form of entertainment. You can tell any story, any art style, any genre, and a comic book can hold it. You can't say that about
100%, and that's
everything,
not
you know?
something like a Spider-Man that's gonna sell 1,000,000,000 copies of it, you know, like, obviously, that's not gonna appeal to everybody. Like,
Right.
it when I see somebody going for mass appeal with their one of their, like, early projects, it almost strikes me as, like, icky.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, why, and that's probably just a me thing, no offense to anybody out there, but
Well,
it's
I mean,
weird to
I'm
me if you're a like, you know,
so I can speak to that just a smidge because I
'cause
have
yours does appeal to
actually
a wide audience, like, there's a huge market for survival horror kinda stuff.
yeah, and when I write it very cinematically, and I do that not because I'm trying to get it optioned or anything like that, but I think in the back of my mind, best case scenario, if it does get optioned, I don't want to have to do much work. I could just hand it like, this is all you got to do. Ta-da! Like, you're
Right.
welcome. You know, like, and some people looked at that when I started to talk because I did some interviews, live interviews where people are like, "Oh, look, he just wants to get famous." Listen, if all I want to do is get famous, I could have done it. When I'm trying, like
Right.
when you try to like insinuate that someone's creative task is really just to get famous, you're probably wrong because
Right,
these
and that was
lives are
probably
not
also a
easy to
poor
do.
choice of words on my end. I'm just trying to figure out how to, like, kinda
Oh
word it
no,
right.
no, you worded it perfectly because there's a lot of people who are trying to make the next big thing
Yeah, like,
because they want to be famous. They want to make money. Well, tell you what, if
you're
you're
in the
getting
wrong
into
industry,
comics to
bub,
make money, bro, try going to finance or something where you wear a tie to work
and the
because
comic
it's
book
not here.
industry is very much an industry of love. Like, if you
Yeah,
don't love it, and this is every single creator I've ever talked to,
it's gonna
including
chew
big
you
name
up and spit
creators
you out.
that I met back last year at GalaxyCon, like Dan Jurgens, like, I mean,
Yeah,
Ron Bars, Daryl Banks, like Gavin Smith, all these creators, Alyssa Wong, if you don't love this industry, you're not gonna make it in it.
Yeah, no, and all these, these big names, Arthur Soydum, David Nakayama, they're all regular people.
Yeah.
And if you think like that they want to spend their entire lives traveling from convention to convention, drawing and signing artwork for people,
There's a
you got
reason they
nothing
do
coming.
that.
Like, believe me, if they could afford to not do that and just draw for a living,
That's
that's
why
what
you
they
see
would
some of
do.
these comic book creators that are, like, in their 80s
Hmm.
still dragging themselves along at a convention.
Yeah,
Like,
because it's a way for them to still make
supplement their
money.
income,
I mean,
which is
and
sad that they have
nothing
to
wrong
with
with
as
that,
much money as they've made some of those companies, but we're getting
Yeah,
into a whole other podcast here,
that is a whole other episode.
which is an episode we should do in the future for sure.
Yeah.
But what's your first choice? What was one that stood out to you from our past guests?
The first one that really stood out was the Herald.
Ah, okay.
That
That's a newer one from Alan Dunford.
Yes, I went, and that's when I went, because I never remembered seeing this one.
Episode
Out
15, if
of
anybody out there is curious.
all of the books that I was looking over to review and to have for this episode, I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember this one. So I went and read that, and that I mean, the Herald
Let's
is
say
one
the
of the
thing
most
with Alan
badass
is when he comes
characters
on any of
ever.
our shows, every time I've ever interviewed him, it's never just one book.
Yeah.
There's always like 4 or 5 that he's got all at the same time because if for those who don't know, Alan Dunford is one of the writers for Focus Hocus, Grandma Chainsaw, Horus in Hell, and now, of course, his new series, The Herald, which
So,
is completely different, honestly, in my opinion,
yes,
than some of his other stuff. A lot of his stuff is horror comedy, which is amazing. It's some of the best horror comedy you guys will see out there.
for sure.
But The Herald was something different. It's
Yeah.
like a Western kind of a Ghost Rider feel to it,
Yes.
but also sort of like some time travel stuff going on.
So
Like,
I literally in my notes wrote, by the end, he gives off a very Ghost Rider type feel, knowing all the misdeeds and all the names of all the targets. And I remember when I was looking at this book, the art style is so different from all the other stuff that he does, for the most part, because he works with Kit, who's unbelievably talented. I love
shout
everything
out
he
Kit
does.
Wallace.
And
We're gonna have him on the show at one point on my old show, and some scheduling conflicts happened, and he couldn't make it. He was supposed to be on once with Alan, but
and the reason why I wanted to point out the Herald more so than any other books, I mean, I got a couple other ones I really like too, but I'm a huge fan of lettering because it
Mhm.
adds so much to the book where a lot of casual fans might not realize. But Dave Lentz, his work, he was actually and when I was watching the interview and he was like, reach out to the people, you never know, they might say yes. That I did that with Dave. Like, I was like, if I'm gonna get a letter, if I'm gonna pay someone to do this, I want Dave Lentz, because he is the best, in my opinion, currently lettering in the game. And
And lettering is something we preach about here on the show when we get a chance because letterers are some of the most underappreciated people in the
uh-huh,
industry.
for sure.
If you've ever looked at a book and said, "Why is this so hard to read?" Bad lettering.
Yep.
Like, that's
Or
why the
whenever you look
letterer
at
is the
something,
one who makes your book legible. So
yep. Or whenever you look at something and go, wow, they said that really cool. Or when you read, like, a lot of it's
or I like the shape
subconscious.
of those word bubbles, or I like the
Yep.
way that is flows like
One
that.
of
It's
my
real nice.
favorite
Like,
pieces in
Dave's is
this
just so
book.
easy to read, man.
Yep. One of my favorite
It's
pieces in this
centered,
book
it's
was when he was exhaling. Like, there was actually, like, the way he wrote it, you can tell that the character said it as he was exhaling. So you
mhm.
know how that sounds in your head. It's different than saying that exact same thing without it. You know what I mean? And every time I do a book review and Lens is on it, I'm like, yes. Because he's
'Cause you
so
know you're
good.
gonna be able to read
Yep.
it clearly. You know you're gonna be able to understand what order to read it in because he sets
Yes.
everything just, like, perfectly.
And it's the little things like on the interview, Alan mentioned, and I think you pointed out too, the Greek lettering when they went like back in
Mhm.
time. That was genius. I remember literally stopping and going, "Oh, like like that is gorgeous,"
And I love what
And
Mr. Fish just said, "Bad lettering will ruin a book. Good lettering is invisible." If the
yes,
lettering is done right, you don't even notice anything about it because you're just reading.
which is
Like,
sad. Which is
it
sad, like
is sad,
for
but
the letterers
that's
themselves,
kind of what you want it to do though, right? You don't want
for
it to be
sure,
something the reader has to consciously think about. Like, "Okay, which
absolutely.
one do I have to read next?" Like,
He let Dave takes, and he's worked a lot with Alan. I think what, like 4 books, if I'm not mistaken, 4 of his like
he's worked
6.
on he's done Pocus, he's done Horace, he's done Grandma.
Oh, and Grandma
I think
Chainsaw.
he's
That's
done
oof.
all of I think he's done all their books, actually.
So that's probably why he wasn't available to do my book.
Probably. Alan's
I'm going
got
to.
that man
That's it. I'm
chained up
calling
in a room
Alan.
somewhere, just working away on lettering.
Now, the reason why he does so well with these demon books is that he's actually a demon and has his soul signed to a contract. Exactly. That's
Yes,
Mr.
that
Fish
I love
on
that
point.
comment, yes. The words should register as voices in your head. Like, it
And the
shouldn't
good
you should
ones, they
the
do.
act of reading should not be conscious.
It should be like breathing.
Right, like, I don't think about breathing, I just
I don't know
breathe.
why I said that so creepy like.
Who
Like
cares?
breathing.
Just don't go there,
Luke,
That's
I
gonna be
am
the
your
rest of the
father.
podcast, just heavy breathing.
ASMR.
Right.
I love coming on this show.
Oh, no, dude, I love having you on, it's fun. But you know what book is likely to give people some heavy breathing is The Successor, man, from Linda Sackerman. This one is
Creepy as hell.
creepy as hell, it's dark, it is horror action to the fullest. Basically, AI has taken over the world, humans now do the jobs that robots used to do, and through all that, there's one android robot that is taking care of a human girl that he found orphaned. The girl believes this is her dad because it's the only anyone she's ever met or ever knew. Somebody comes in, kills the robot, takes the girl, and that's like the end of issue 1. I'm like,
Wait,
what?
wait.
But like it's one of those like it will like it plays out a lot more than that, but I don't want to spoil it for people. And if you want to check it out, there's going to be links to every book on every episode. So if you go back to episode 6, you will find this one.
Well, that
But
it's
it's a
interesting that
sci-fi horror that will make you cry 100%.
that's very similar to one of the ones I picked too. I really like this new wave of AI taking over the world and ruining it type
Well, it's
stories,
a hot
like
topic right now because
digital number 1. I like it gave off Terminator
very
vibes,
similar
but it
vibe.
was
There's a lot
completely
of
different.
tropes in this series, a lot of things you've seen before probably. There's a lot of spoofs on
Yep.
things like Terminator, but, it was done intentionally that way. They did that so it's easily recognizable. They wanted to
And
use
that's smart.
popular themes so that it would be something that it's different, it's new, but it's recognizable and familiar at the same time.
And that's, when you can do that with a story,
'Cause tell me
especially
this
with.
does not give you Terminator vibes,
Oh, yeah.
100%.
No,
You know,
it
it
read
started off
like.
as something in every home, we all had one, and boom, so there's iRobot, there's, there's a lot of Detroit Human, there's a lot of vibes going on in
Yep.
that series, but it was just so well done, and the artwork is gorgeous.
Yes. No, and when you look at these very similar themes,
And again,
and
that's
that's the
episode
thing.
14 if you guys are curious. I am gonna try to remember to say which episode these books are in that we're talking about, so you guys can go find them.
And that's the thing about what we were talking about earlier, the comics get that you can tell any story and tell it in a fresh way. Like, and then that's and not to jump too quickly to the next one, but that's Prowl is like that. You take
Mm.
the because that's my next book. You take this big bad wolf in sheep's clothing and make them the good guy. I mean, you take
Yeah,
these
it's a
ideas and
very new take on a werewolf story. Episode
it's
7, our interview with
brilliant.
Adam Fields, uh, friend of mine outside of the internet. I've ran into him in about probably 20 different conventions now. Like we tried to make that episode happen for over a year. Finally got him in here. He's a really cool guy. But yeah, the werewolf is basically what happens if the sheep or the wolf is protecting the sheep instead of eating the herd. Like
That's
it's
when you look at these books and it's like, w- how has this story not been told like this before?
right.
Like
The
it's
werewolf's always
brilliant.
either like the anti-hero or the bad guy or the species trying to eradicate another species. Like you think Underworld,
Yep.
the werewolves were the bad guys, right? The
Werewolf
werewolves
in
were the ones
London.
that they wanted to exterminate. And in this one, the werewolf is the hero. And the transformation into a werewolf is different in this.
Yep.
Like normally they need the full moon and all that. This, I don't want to get into spoilers. This guy, he's
Right.
got a pendant. And the
It,
pendant is what helps him transform into his wolf form.
and there's I've heard some people say comic industry is dying and because all the stories have been told. Absolutely not.
No, 100%.
Maybe every theme may have already been touched and done in one book or the other, but
But
this
everybody's brain is different.
exactly.
Everybody's going to take a concept and go in a different direction with it. Somebody
What
could sit down and hand you and me a script for something, and we'll take it and make a video. Like, this is perfect way for me to describe it because I'm more familiar with content creation than I am with
right
making a comic book because I've never done that. But
yet.
yet, yeah, anyway,
Moving on.
moving on. But two creators will get the same script and not make the same video. I could
Yep.
hand you a trailer script and you're going to make a video that probably looks and sounds completely different than anything I would make. And that's not
Eh,
saying either one of them is better than the other.
exactly. No, and that's the thing, and like how like they did it on purpose in digital, just like I'm doing a lot of that on purpose too. Like I have my comic set in a world like ours, so I can make pop culture references to reel people in to go, oh, this is funny. I get that joke.
Right, like a zombie land with Bill Murray.
Right.
It's
Listen, there's not many things that
one
I
of the
hope
greatest cameo in all of cinema history, in my
beautiful,
opinion.
absolutely beautiful. You shot Bill Murray. I didn't mean to. He's just such a good actor. But and when you look at werewolves, the fall of humanity due to AI, yes, these stories may have been told, but we've got these brilliant creators that are putting fresh new spins on it and giving, and it's literally like,
Well, and society changes over time. So the
yes.
AI stories of the '80s are different than the AI stories of now because
Could you,
AI is different. AI is real now.
yo,
Back
right?
then, AI wasn't real, like AI is real now.
And we're just letting it take over.
I'll be
pretty
damned.
soon, pretty soon we're gonna
I
John
use as
Cena.
little AI as physically possible for
Yeah.
anything as far as content creation stuff goes.
I've literally used AI for like two things, and it's like the background you're seeing here, which I then edited myself,
Right.
and then one other background. That's it.
I use it for spell check a lot. I use it for word
Which
count.
you know what? And that's what it's supposed to be doing.
I use it to help
Counting
me
words and shit.
brainstorm. Stuff like that.
Not making art. You shouldn't be using
No.
AI for art.
That's another whole podcast in and of
Hmm.
itself as well, because that's been happening a lot recently too, I've seen.
I got a feeling that
AI
when you
cover artist, in which the whole sentence doesn't even compute in my fucking brain.
I got a feeling when you do the Opus clips, which is appropriate use of AI.
And
It's
now I've
gonna
gotten
it's
to the
gonna
point
take
where I
this.
don't even let Opus edit them anymore for me. I just let it pick like clips, and then I go in and edit the clips on my own later on my own software because it comes out better.
That's a good idea. See, what I do is I let them pick the clips, and then I go in and edit the whole thing in their software.
Yeah,
Like
see, I just don't like their editing
oh, it's
software,
god
but
awful,
we're
but
getting into a whole 'nother
damn.
conversation now. We keep doing this.
Well, it's because we had a couple of our books deal with AI, and we're like,
Yeah.
"Ah!" But no, and back to, these great books that have maybe similar themes, but they're just so good, and I love that people are giving these books a chance because these stories are brilliant in most cases. Like I don't think I've ever really read a bad story. I've had some people give me like or I've read, generic stories
Mhm.
or low quality art. You know what I mean? I've seen that where it's like kind of sloppy, just thrown together just to get the book out type thing. Um,
Right. We
but for
call
the
those a
most
cash
part,
grab, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah, for the most part, the people who are really putting in the work to make these books happen, it's that you can see the care and the love and the joy that goes in, and the pain, the suffering, the struggles that go in to
Oh, yeah.
making all of these books, and just to be and it's really hard when I say things like that because now I'm talking about myself too,
Well,
and it's
right. Well,
kind of weird.
and in that vein, somebody else who's also a early first time, creator, Hamza Pachenkovich, this was his first solo project as a writer illustrator. The Crystal Compass, man, it's Chronicles of Narnia meets Treasure Planet meets Goonies. And
He
that's this
actually
book. There's, there's sky pirates, there's a magical crystal compass that takes a kid to a new magical realm. Like it's so many great
it's
like
awesome.
all ages tropes in one book that it's like perfect.
You know, it was crazy. He actually backed my Kickstarter after seeing our interview.
Yeah.
I was like, "Wait a
Hamza
minute."
is Hamza's
I
one
looked
of
at it, I was
those
like,
creators, man. He's a
"That
living
name looks
example
familiar."
of you guys do not compete with each other.
Well, it's
You
because
might all
we
have
all have
like
the same
I know
dream, just
Alan jokes
getting
that
a
there's
different way.
Kickstarter season where everybody kind of releases all their stuff at once and everybody's kind of competing for donations, but are you really? Because you guys donate to each other's stuff. So
Yeah. Well, it's because a lot of and that's the beauty of the indie scene right now is that there's so many of us that were
sorry.
100%
By the way,
just
episode number
fans.
3 was the Crystal Compass. You can go there and find some information on that book as well.
Because we all started out more or less as people just loved comics. Then we were like, wait a minute, I'm gonna do that too. Because that's what I mean. I had this story that I've been sitting on for a decade, and I was like, huh, I'm gonna make it into a comic. Hey, Martin, you want to draw some comic zombies?
That's one of those like, okay, this was a kid hobby that I had when I was a kid, but now I'm adult with adult money and I can do what I want.
Right? Won't have much adult money after the tax season, for Christ's sake. But that's not
Oh
even
god, that's a whole nother genre of podcasts right there.
true
We don't
crime.
have enough
I mean,
licenses and certifications to talk about that.
this is true. This is true. Well, for a good
We
for
are
a good
not
reason.
financial advisors.
Do not take anything we say at nothing but face value.
But even, like, going back onto the, similar tropes over, but it still makes it fresh, think about a creator like John McCarthy, who's got stuff like Loop Guru, which is based off of, like it's their o he's creating his own monster verse, man. So Loop Guru is like a swamp werewolf, then he's got the Dirt Witch, which is coming out soon, which I still need to do a review video on. I apologize, John, I've been really busy and I was hurt for a while, so it's a whole thing. But it proves, like, you can use these old concepts and make them new still.
Absolutely, and that's one of the most common things I get asked about my book is how when you do zombies, how do you keep that fresh? Well, I
Well, what
mean,
did I ask you when you first told me about it? I think the first question I asked you was what makes it different than Walking
yeah,
Dead?
what makes it
Because
different than Walking Dead?
at first glance, that's what it
Yes.
looks like.
Which is done almost as an homage,
Right.
because it's such a big part of the genre. But what makes it, when you think about stuff like that, or look at like the Herald, you see that character just as you might look at him and be like, oh, it's just some other Western. It's just some demon hunter. No, this is something, and I can't wait to see more. Like,
It's
it,
something
it
bigger,
got me. And
like, it's not just a Western. And you could
yes,
tell that within the first few pages because there's a flashback scene back to, like, ancient Roman times.
and it was so awesome. Or again,
So,
with
it like, you
digital,
can
and
tell that just from the first issue, we're in for a something grand.
when you have, and that's, you know why people do that? It's because these tropes are tropes for a reason.
They
Like,
work.
they work, and
There's a
I
reason
actually,
so many movies cover the same, maybe not topic, but, like, overall theme,
yeah,
because they're recognizable themes that people relate to. There's nothing wrong with feeling familiar to something else, as long as you
right.
make it your own.
Well, I actually caught myself today. I actually put on YouTube, and I had in the background, it was like post-apocalyptic tropes used in media, just playing in the background, people going over like, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get to zombies. It's not going to be anything like mine. And then she was like, it's a nihilistic approach where all humans are bad. I was like, is she
I mean,
talking to me?
like,
Like,
yeah,
and
so, I mean, sort of what they say is halfway true. There's no true original idea under the sun anymore,
right,
to an
but
extent.
but I
There's
mean,
original ways to utilize these ideas.
correct, and also original characters, and I think that's one thing that
And I think if you look at
indies
something
do
like
so
Horus in
well.
Hell,
Hmm.
you that's definitely its own thing. Like, I don't
God, kid's so talented.
there's some things out there that just stand out as their own thing. Yours does that, a lot of Alan's work does that, and this next one, from Adam Matthew Smith, Hyperforce does that,
Oh
man.
yeah.
Hyperforce, was one other one where I went into it and I was like, "Oh, okay, mercenary team, kinda your average everyday thing." No,
Yep.
this is, government's taking over, hyper sapiens, which is what they're calling, basically metahumans, superpowered individuals. They're discriminated against by the government, so they're trying to take the government down. There's secret prisons going, like, it's a whole thing.
And we did a review for for this book, and when I first started reading it, I was like, oh great, here comes this another superhero story. It's not. I was thinking X Force. That's how I first initially am reading. I'm like,
Yeah,
and
that's the
right
vibes it
now,
gives off for sure, is X-Force or
and like right
Deadpool
now,
vibes
I'm
or
I'm trying to stay away from those stories, and I'm now realizing I'm wrong. As long as I just stay away from the big ones, because that book felt like something so fresh and something so different while having
because
similarities.
there's a lot of character work going into it. There's not
Yes.
like a lot of these team books like this that have like a team of heroes or a team of mercenaries. You don't get to know each individual character that
Yep.
well. You get surface level stuff, but in Hyperforce and in Shadows, which is the prequel to Hyperforce, you you really start getting to know these characters immediately just in the way they speak to each other.
Yeah. And that's the thing I also think make that indies do much better. And we spoke about it before. The reason why is because most cases indie titles, if you don't have a good one or two, 3 issue run, your run's done, and you're starting from scratch with something else. So they have to do a better job off
Mhm.
of just off rip. You know, and I think that level of concentration on detail is evident and clear in so many of these indie titles that you reviewed and that we've talked about. I mean, there's and the fact that as 20 episodes in now, and some of
Mhm.
them like Alan have 4 or 5 thousand books in it. Um, they we're not even scratching the surface about what's out there.
No,
Not even
not even
close.
close. My inbox still has so many emails.
And
So many emails.
that brings so much joy to my heart. You know, and not
Oh,
just as
like,
a
every
creator
time I get
myself,
another
but
one, I'm like, "Yes." Like, even if I don't get to you right away, and that's one thing I wanna say, like, even if I don't respond to a creator right away that is trying to come onto the show, I will respond. Y I just get a lot of emails, and it's just me answering them. So
yeah. And that's
And we only
the
do one episode a week. So, I mean, there's only so many people I could have on.
that's the both the joy and the drawback
Mhm.
of being a small let's just say indie creator is that we don't have like people who I like thinking about it this way, like Pat McAfee. Love the guy to death, but all he has to do is show up and be himself, and then
Yeah.
his whole team does everything else. You
Yeah.
know, great, more power to him.
And I'm
Again, I
sure I mean, I'm
love that
sure he
guy.
does his own, like, research about stuff.
Oh
So
yeah,
he's got his own talking points and all that stuff. I mean, I'm not gonna try to sit here and say
but
Pat
he
McAfee hasn't earned what he's got, but
Oh no, he absolutely earned it. But he focused on just his strength, and he has a
and he's
team to
got a
run
team of
everything
people
else.
helping him with everything else,
Like
yes.
I love when you watch his show, they pull up to like just the people in that like dark room that are just editing, like they're editing as it's going, and they're trying to like it's like that like
Oh, yeah, we don't have no
central
producer
command.
bringing these pictures up, guys, it's just me.
like,
Like
like we don't have central command like Bravo 10 yes. Oh, I'm getting
I would kill to have a producer in my ear some days, like,
yeah.
honestly.
Well, we talked about that earlier when I was at the point sometimes I'm just like, that's it. Just give me a publisher. I'm done. This dream is not all it's cracked up to be.
Right. If anybody's in the live chat, if you're a reader or a creator of any kind and you have any kind of questions that you think we might be able to help you out with, let us know. We've got about 5-10 minutes left in the show, so this would be a good time for you guys to get your questions in. If not, we're just going to keep talking your ear off until the end of the show.
And I'll say this, and if you don't see this live and you catch on the replay, still type in. Because
Mhm.
the two people on this panel, at least, we're
We
very
check the
OCD
comments and we
about
answer every
commenting on
comment.
everything.
We have to, or else our brain yells at us. So
Someone said something. Why haven't you responded yet?
I'll say the only time I don't respond to a comment is if it's like super mean or negative. Like if
See,
it's
even then
negative
I
yet
do.
respectful, I'll debate with the person. I can have a conversation and we can agree to disagree at the end of it. That's fine. But you start name calling and,
See,
saying, why do you even do this and this and that and the other and blah, 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 blah. Like once you start trying to demean me, we're done.
yeah, no, like I always we talk about this all the time, off air. I'll entertain it for some time because that's engagement. That works for
Yeah.
the algorithm. I'll entertain your thoughts there, sweetie.
And
But
if
once you cross
we can
that
keep it
line,
respectful and banter back and forth and bicker, that's fine. I'm all for a debate.
yeah, you don't have to have the same opinions. That's
No.
another thing. A lot of
Just
people,
keep
I
it
think,
civil. That's what people can't do anymore, it seems like, is just keep it
right.
civil, man.
Well, and I think that you look at like these indie creators, man, a lot of them could have that kind of attitude, where it's like bashing somebody else to do better for themselves or things like that, and it's just so not like that. And it reminds me of the comic book community when I first came back to social media during the pandemic on Instagram,
Mhm.
because when we all came together digitally, of course, when the world went to hell, we all seem to just be so happy that we're all alive, that we're all
I
nice
was
to
gonna
each other
say,
and
like,
loving each
during
other.
the pandemic, I'm not saying it was a good thing by any means, but people seemed to be nicer to each other there for a little bit. Like, everybody it was a more of, like, a air of, "Are you alright? Are you doing
Yeah.
good? Like, is everybody cool?" Like, like, now it's, "Get the fuck away from me." Like,
Well, it's because that's what
"I
society
don't
has
like
bounced
you."
back.
Like,
It's those absurd people that were just so happy that they were still alive are now back and like, oh, we're good. Time to raise hell again. Yeah.
Right.
It's pretty much what
Sounded like
happened.
an angry Kermit the Frog.
I've never even tried to do a Kermit the Frog. I wonder if I could do it.
You just did, like, a half-assed one.
No, see, I'm the problem is I can't in my head. I can't think of what he sounds like.
You'd have to probably watch an episode of The Muppets or something real quick.
Yeah, I can do lots of voices, but
One
I
day we're
didn't
gonna do
know.
a whole episode of just Kyle using voices.
We can do that. We can have lots of fun and enjoy playtime. It'll be nice for everybody.
But see, then you're gonna just use one accent or one voice that irritates somebody, and then we're gonna get mass reported.
Oh no, please don't mass report us. Mr. J said that's not a good
Hang
idea.
on, man. You're gonna bring out the bat stands. Don't do it.
Matt. Hey, Bat said this is an independent comic. There is no room for that here.
No,
We
Batman's
have nothing
fine
against him.
here. We don't get upset over capes and
I
tights here.
I love how we both went to say it's all fine. I assure you. We are not
If y'all
hating on the
don't
Batmans.
if y'all are not on comic book TikTok, you don't understand what we're talking about. But if you are on comic book TikTok, you know exactly what we're talking about.
No, it's and
But yeah, like
it's good
the indie
good
comic
to
book scene is so much more healthy, I think, than people give it credit for. It's doing a
yep.
lot better than people think it is.
Mhm.
And people, the creators in that scene, really comic book creators in general, are just
Yeah.
so down to earth. I think I've only had a bad experience speaking with one, and I feel like they were just having a bad day.
Well, and it's
So
because
I
this is
think
such a great medium to work in. You know what I mean? Like when you're talking
Mhm.
about what you can do in it, you've got literally a blank slate to tell whatever the hell story you want. And I think so many of us are just so happy to be here. It's like we're so happy to get invited to the dance. We don't even care if we get asked to dance.
Right.
Like, we're here. We're good. Can I get some punch? All right, cool.
Well,
Like,
and then, like, it's one of those weird industries where once you've got a foot in the door, like, you don't even have to have your toe all the way in there. If you can just get the door cracked open a little bit, people open up the rest of the
yep.
way for you. Like, a perfect example of that, Tony Fleeks,
Mm,
writer for Stray Dogs, Local Man, Uncanny Valley coming out soon, Feral coming out soon, which is what we interviewed him about back on episode 13. It's he's one of those creators that has become a very big name if you're an indie comic book fan. Like, if you're a fan of indie comics or Image, you have read Stray Dogs. You're
oh,
reading
so
Local Man.
good.
You know what I'm saying? Like, these are books everybody who's in that scene knows about.
Yep.
And we didn't reach out to him. He reached out to us to come and talk about the book,
Which is amazing.
which blew my mind because I remember when I first started this, I'm not gonna name names, very well could in this instance.
Mhm.
Wouldn't bother me much, but I'm not that guy. But I had PR guys like, well, we're looking for people with bigger following counts.
Yep.
Like it's
It it makes no sense. Like,
and
we've
then when
talked
you
about this off
speak to the
air.
actual creators, like Tony Fleeks does not need to come onto our show to sell his
No.
books, but he wanted to talk about his book.
And that's the point. That right there, you can
Creators
tell
want to discuss their stuff. They want to give it to people. They want to show it to people.
when you're proud of what you created and you believe in what you created, you can't get enough interviews. Like I would literally, if I had my way, I would do interview every day. I probably would cancel a few because I'm
Right.
I'm
And
me,
now
but
that was one of our best performing interviews so far on YouTube, but it wasn't even that way like when we first did it. There was 2 people watching the whole time, if that, when we were doing it live. And that doesn't bother me. I will do the
right,
same kind of episode if there's 0 people watching or if there's 100 people sitting here. But you worry about that as a host of something when you have a bigger name like that come
oh
on,
yeah,
because you're like, man, if he sees there's only one fucking person watching,
yep.
like that's kind of like, eh. But
That's how I was when Ario came on
but the
my show so
creators
early.
don't care
They
about
don't care.
that.
Nope. If they're
PR
enjoying
guys
the
and marketing
conversation,
departments care about that.
yeah. No,
The
if they're
creators
enjoying the
themselves,
conversation,
no.
they'll be there as long as you want. Like I that's how I felt when Ario, the guy who actually this most recent release of the High Republic is the last one he's worked on. He's worked on everything from volume 1 all the way up to right now. I had him on my podcast at like my third interview of all time. And I'm sitting here like, this guy's writing for Marvel and Star Wars. If he comes on, I got lucky because
I
he's
think it was one of my first interviews. It was Zach Howard from Image.
Mhm.
Like if it's one of those, if you build it, they will come.
Yep.
There's not
I
a lot of shows doing what we do here on the Indie Inkwell. So when creators find out about it, they want to come on. Like it's
I
it's
think they
it's the
also
same thing
realize
with
that
you
got
guys
some
though.
good peoples here.
If you make a book and it's good,
Yeah.
there's an audience for it. Period.
Period. No, absolutely. And
It
that's
doesn't
the
matter
one
what
thing.
kind of book it is. There's somebody that will this will be my new favorite book. You know what I'm saying? Like, somebody out there
Absolutely.
is going to be your biggest fucking fan.
Yeah.
Like
No, and those people, like, granted, we write for ourselves or write just to write, but when we get those people, the
Right.
ones that are like, "Hey, when's the next one coming out? Oh my god, I loved it. Hey, can I ask you a question about this?" Like, those are the people that some might think like, "Oh, that's gonna get annoying." I don't care how many times someone asks me to talk about a character or my book. I will be glad to talk about it. You know what
Yeah,
I
like
mean?
Mr. Fish says, "I just wanna tell cool stories." Like,
Yep.
that's all you can ask for is to be able to do what you want to do right there. Like,
And
that's why I
I've
like doing
been
this show. Even if
thankful to do
nobody
it.
watches it, I'm still gonna do it because I enjoy having these conversations with creators. Like, I like digging into people's heads and figuring out where a story came from.
I'd be careful, everyone. Dig around my head. It's kind of scary up there.
Eh.
Hey, you've seen some of the stuff that I'm just warming up in that book.
If it was too scary, I wouldn't have you on the show.
Well, challenge accepted. I am
Watch
gonna write
watch out
something.
for the Halloween episode later this year, guys.
I'm gonna write something so horrific, even JJ can't stand it.
We have had to deny a couple people coming on the show because their books weren't exactly, like, scary, but, like, if it's something's just over the top, either gory or nudity or like, I'm
Unfortunately,
not gonna
that
risk my
sells,
show and
but
our sponsors and all that crap
no,
for your
absolutely.
movie book. It's not
There's a market for it. Congratulations, enjoy. No fault to you or hate to you. Just not my scene.
Right, and, like, on here, I've told people, like, even if your book has some gore and stuff in it, just don't expect me to show the gory bits during the interview because I know for a fact we have younger people that watch, so
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times, a lot of creators use that stuff as a crutch. You know,
mhm,
they'll just let's make it overly sexy or overly gruesome, and it'll be fine. I,
right.
I,
Like, if
I
it's
mean,
just
I
gore
get
for
it.
gore's sake, it's not interesting to me.
No, and that's a common issue. I think with some creators, when they can't find a way to tell an original story, they just throw boobs or blood at it and just
Mhm,
hope it works. And some people it does. I mean, some people they only gravitate towards that stuff. And again, more power to you if that's what you're into. Um, Me, as the stories I try to tell, I have to have a lot more substance than that.
right.
And I hope that I never have to lean on that crutch. Listen.
If you
I'm just
start, you trust me, I will let you know because I'm be like, "Hey, bro, stop it."
all right. Cross out the naked zombie issue 3. Oh man, but yeah, it's indie comics are just so awesome, and it's seeing this show grow, and don't don't get too embarrassed. I'm praising you like you normally do when we start praising, but seeing this show go from literally nothing to what it is now, and I mean, you've had some not only up and coming big creators, and this is just the 20th episode.
Mhm.
The This is just the beginning, man, and to be along for the ride, to be the first ever guest, to be a multiple time guest host, it's nothing but an honor, man.
Man, I appreciate that, and, like, dude, I'm so proud we're just sitting here putting each other over, but I'm so fucking proud of you because you had a goal that you've had for so fucking long. When I first met you, you were talking about this. That was almost 4
Yep.
years ago now when we first interacted.
Oh,
Yeah, think about that. It's already almost been 4 years,
that's insane.
and the fact that you had this goal, you were talking about it, and you know how many people in our group of,
I'm
like,
gonna do
people
this, that, and the other.
yeah, and they do it, but then they don't do it, but then they do it, you did it, man,
I,
like
I still I legitimately still like kind of geek out about it sometimes. Like I literally the other day I was just sitting outside and I just had a random thought of like when Arthur opened up the book, Arthur Sadum, and was like, "Who published this? Me. Who wrote it? Me. Who created it? Me.
Me?
Who did the art? Now the art is not me. I'm a very talented artist.
Right.
You know, and I was just started smiling and just thought like, wait, what the hell? Like I was there for a second, and you know, like and I again just starting. Like I'm still working on getting issue 1 out. I'm hoping to have issue 1 by July, and hopefully I will have a #1 exclusive at Miami SuperCon.
Hell yeah.
That's what we're shooting for, at least.
I would say everything with a grain of salt because you never know what goes down, but it's never a bad thing to have the goal and the plan going already. So
Hey, you hit one goal, set another one. That's all you can do.
that's all you can do because like the biggest thing, and then we'll kind of wrap the show up, is I've seen that kills people's stuff is complacency. They get comfy.
Yeah.
They think they've already made it once they get to a certain point. And
And some
I'm
people
very conscious of the fact that I have not made it. You are very conscious of the fact that you're not a, a huge freaking name. And then there's people out there that think they are, and they're definitely not.
And then there's also those ones who wish they were and are complacent in not being and not following their dreams, that they just never even try.
Yeah.
I just want to hey, anyone watching, listening, try. Yoda was freaking wrong, man. There is a try, okay? I am a huge Star Wars fan.
If
I'm
you break that
wearing a Star
down
Wars
though,
shirt right now.
if you break down the whole, do or do not, there is no try. He's right. Because trying implies that you didn't finish it. So if you do something and it still fails, you still did it.
Yeah.
But if
Well,
you
absolutely.
don't ever do it, then you didn't do it. That's not trying. You just didn't do it.
Do or do not. Try there is no. Yes.
Well,
Use
thank
the
you everybody
force.
who's hung out with us this entire episode, 20 episodes in. I'm shocked and happy as hell that it's doing as well as it is. It's only going to do better. If you guys want to help support the show, go check out our merch store. You can find that link down in the description below or on the QR code on your screen if you're watching us. Also, you can go over to our sponsor, intotheam.com/JJ Comics. Get 10% off your order. They got all kinds of great graphic tees. They also got basic stuff like socks, t-shirts, hoodies, anything you really need, they've got as far as men's clothing goes. Mr. Fish says the voices are on point. I'm sure Kyle appreciates that.
I need to start doing voiceovers. I'm so.
And
With
yeah,
that note,
if you guys prefer your podcasts in the audio format, there's a QR code on your screen right now where you can check us out on Spotify. We are also on Castbox, Audible, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. So there are multiple places you can find us. And with that, thank you, Kyle, for coming on and helping guest host yet again. Shout out Longbox Entertainment, whose job is keeping him away from us yet again. I get angry at the Air Force when they do this, but
we still love you.
He's doing important stuff. He's training guys to keep us safe. So I guess we
And
can let it slide.
I appreciate you actually sometimes taking off so I can, hop on real quick. I still love you, man, but just know I got your back if ever needed.
Right. But with that, everybody, please feel free to leave comments down in below this episode. If you do have any questions about the indie comic book industry, like I said, Kyle and I do check comments on every episode that comes out. Even if he's not on there, he's on there looking at comments and letting me know if something gets said. So your comment and question will get answered regardless. But as always, everybody, please be safe, be kind, and take it easy.